So any public officer or public employee of any public agency who has a relative with a substantial interest in any contract, sale, purchase, or service shall make known that interest in the official record of such public agency and shall refrain from voting upon or otherwise participating in any manner of an office or employee such contract, sales, or purchase. Okay, so sometimes I'm not very clear about the purposes for my videos, but this one is specifically targeting Matt Walker. Matt Walker, Tucson City attorney, right? Well, I'm not sure what he is. That's the whole thing. But this is targeting Matt Walker, and I am telling everybody that he has used his position to help his wife and himself have personal gain to benefit. They benefited from each other's positions, and especially him. But the reason I don't know what to call him is because this is what he calls himself. See, my confusion here is that he's representing himself as a principal, capital P, or principal's assistant. You see what I'm saying? So I'm confused, but it also says city attorney, then it says Tucson City, and then criminal division. I don't know what he is. So let me explain just briefly why this is so important. Okay, so we have 3 branches of government, right? And everybody assumes that they operate independently, and then other people assume that they operate independently but work together, right? And then other people are assuming that it's just 3 different types of government that are going to fall, or in general, governments arise or fall, right? Well, I'm saying right now, what's going to happen is these 3 independently working branches are going to all connect with each other at once. This right here is going to be the reason that our government all becomes one. That our 3 branches all become one big freaking arm. The 3 branches are the Congress, like the people that sit in the office all day, we'll just call them office. And then you have cops and you got judges. You know what I mean? Okay, whatever. Attorneys, cops, and then the Congress office people. Okay, so yeah, I mean, here's what the attorneys, and then like the office, and then police are also called deputies. After they team up, we get little duos, deputy attorneys. Right? Police officers, huh? No, what's the ones we haven't used yet? Look, the office of the attorney general. So come on now. So we need to be careful of what we call ourselves and names and stuff. And speaking of names, just real quick, I just want to give you some history on the word criminal. Do you know where that came from? I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but criminal police, criminal Pelosi or whatever, were Nazi Germany's ranking officers. They were the criminal police department for the entire Reich. Criminal police department, the criminal police for the entire Reich in Nazi Germany. That's where criminal came from. Let's meet some of the lovely employees of Tucson City. Meet criminal deputy Josh Mosier. I'm sure no relation to the Nazis. Most likely he reports to the office of this criminal, which we've already met, but he is the principal assistant of the criminal division. So speaking of criminals, since we know that if you put somebody in jail and they're innocent, that makes you the criminal. You know what I mean? Putting an innocent person in jail. Right. So let's go look, because we know Lane's innocent. So let's go and look at the person who's basically put him in jail. Right. I mean, not the prosecuting attorney, but the one who said the damning words. You know what I mean? Yeah. So this guy was also the school district. He was a unified school district legal advisor.
We're ready, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Parvin, are you ready?
Sure. Now remember, they said they're ready.
State of Arizona versus Lane Jeffrey Myers, IC 003692. Parties, please announce.
Rachel Stiles for the state. Your Honor, we do have the victim present.
Objection, who's the victim? And also objection, why didn't Tracy Miller say, hey, that's my dad's assistant right there, the victim, or something? Why didn't Shannon say, hey, that's like my boss's daughter, that's the judge? You know what I mean? Where's the official record of any of that? My bad. I haven't showed y'all any of that yet. Damn. Oh well, just keep watching. I don't want to go back and fuck up the timeline.
Right.
Breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law, breaking the law.
Mr. Myers, he is present in custody.
Good afternoon, Mr. Myers.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
This is a time set for the no bond hearing. Before we proceed, I do need to let everyone know the court did receive a request under Rule 122.
She's misrepresenting it. It was a request under 122H, not 122, and she didn't fill it because she didn't let him record with his own device. Again, she's actually misrepresenting that, but I don't think she knows any better. But live streaming is interactive, right? And it's a bunch of different signals that's broadcast. A broadcast is one signal that is not, it can only be viewed. It's not caught, whatever, and viewed, not interacted with. A live stream is a bunch of different signals that you can interact with. Yeah. Specifically, live streaming actually has video, and broadcasting. It's either or. It's just a signal that is broadcast, single signal that is broadcast out over the air.
Proceedings. I do want to let everyone know that they are streaming on YouTube this afternoon using the court's YouTube channel. So we are streaming in response to that request.
Now, I caught her another way, which I'm about to show you, but this is what exposed it to me. This is how I knew that this judge and Matt Walker are in cahoots together, because she said the word request. Just that simple word, and I'll explain that here later after I show you how the judge is actually connected with everybody. And if for some reason I'm wrong, it doesn't matter, because they decided to stream this and not, because see, 122H isn't a request. It is a put on notice.
Yes, Your Honor.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Your Honor,
anyways,
the state calls
and
Detective
also
Eric
they didn't
Brown.
clarify anything. So how would I know?
Detective
If they
Brown,
would have
come on up. I'm gonna have you be
refilled that
sworn in
request
before you
and
have
actually
to sit
allowed the
next to
audio
me.
and video to be streamed, I wouldn't have any of these questions. All these questions would be answered, or allegations, whatever you want to call them. They would all be cleared up, but they decided not to.
Detective Brown, come on up. I'm going to have you be sworn in before you have a seat here next to me.
I literally, verbally, sonically objected to this at the time it happened.
Spell your first and last name. ERIC BROWN. Do you solemnly swear to speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You're going to want to turn that microphone towards you. All right, Ms. Stiles, whenever you're ready.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Eric Brown, and I'm a detective with the Tucson Police Department, and I've been employed with the city of Tucson for 21 years, and in that 21 years, I've been a detective for the past 15 years.
Do you know an individual by the name of Lane Myers?
I do.
And
Good.
do you see that person in the courtroom today?
Yes, he's seated to my left here at the defense table. 21 years, and in that 21 years, I've been a detective for the past 15 years.
Do you know an individual by the name of Lane Myers?
I do.
And
Good.
do you see that person in the courtroom today?
Yes, he's seated to my left here at the defense table.
Your Honor, if the record could reflect, please identify the defendant.
Instead of saying something right there, the judge covers for her by asking her to clarify her answer.
Defense table to my left.
I originally did it as a kind of a joke, but here are my objections from the live, like in real time. I used my mouse and clicked pause and then objected and pressed play again. But you get what I'm saying. I hadn't heard it. I hadn't heard what was going to be said.
This afternoon using the court's YouTube channel. So we are streaming in response to that request. State ready to proceed on the no bond hearing?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, the state calls Detective Eric Brown.
Detective Brown, come on up.
Objection. How do we know he's a detective?
I'm going to have you be sworn in before you have a seat here next to me.
Objection. You sounded really, really friendly when you said have a seat here next to me, almost like a sister. Objection. Can you speak up, please? I can't hear you.
You want to turn that microphone. All right, Ms. Stiles, whenever you're ready.
Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Eric Brown, and I'm a detective with the Tucson Police Department, and I've been employed with the city of Tucson for 20.
Objection. Nobody asked you that second part.
Years, and in that 21 years, I've been a detective for the past 15 years.
Do you know an individual by the name of Lane Myers?
I do.
And
Good.
do you see that person in the courtroom today?
Yes,
He is where? Let's hear who he identifies.
And
good.
do you see that person in the courtroom today?
Yes, he's seated to my left here at the defense table.
Your Honor, if the record could reflect that he's identified the defendant.
So she asks him to identify Lane Myers, and then the lady says, let the record show he's identified the victim. Cool. Let's keep it at that. Funny how her slip of the tongue calling Lane a victim is actually the only bit of actual truth that is to any of these statements she makes. Hilarious, because not correcting it's an ethics violation. They have to prevent such misconduct from occurring, they should promptly correct any errors or omissions. Dumb bitch. Rachel.
And in that 21 years, I've been a detective for the past 15 years.
Do you know an individual by the name of Lane Myers?
I do.
And
Good.
do you see that person in the courtroom today?
Yes, he's seated to my left here at the defense table.
Your Honor, if the record could reflect that he's identified the defendant.
This Rachel is completely incompetent, which I've been claiming since day one. But my objection to who he is. The website was changed less than 4 days ago. Look at this. Yeah, because my objection was, how do we know you're a detective? Well, there's a guy named E. Brown, and he's a chief civil deputy. What the fuck is a civil deputy? And, okay, he advises the board of supervisors, right? Okay, so Eric Brown, E. Brown, is a lawyer. He might just have a certification to be a detective or whatever, but another reason why they didn't tell it, or put video with this audio, and also too, like earlier when I pointed out Tracy Miller,
who's also a public employee.
1 second. Give me some more detail about what your day-to-day activities are in your job.
I work specifically for Dean Miller. I write his letters, his remarks. I work with various legal boards. I work with attorneys. Mr. Myers is not an attorney.
Do you have any connection with your husband's office where he works?
Do I personally? We work together occasionally. My husband is an alum of the law school, and Tucson is a small legal community, as I'm sure you know. And there's just
but in your capacity in your job, do you have any connection with the city attorney's office?
Not really.
Matt Walker, assistant principal, city attorney. She works at the university where she writes letters for the dean of the school, Dean Miller, who's got an immediate family member, Judge Tracy Miller, who's presiding over this no bond hearing where this guy from the attorney's office in Pima County was testifying against Myers, and looks like he got a promotion from detective. Let's go through this Arizona revised statute one more time. 38503, conflict of interest, employee prohibition. Any public officer or employee or public agency who has or whose relative has substantial interest in any contract, sale, purchase, or service to such public agencies shall make known the interest on the official record of such public agency and shall refrain from voting upon or otherwise participating in any manner as an officer or employee in such contract, sale, or purchase. Participating in, right? Like sitting there and, testifying against the guy, or sitting behind somebody at an ex parte hearing where you shouldn't be and communicating with them, being a part of that, right? None of this should be happening right now. But again, I mean, you're supposed to make it part of the record, right? And then so given the chance, if the judge asks, hey, do you have a connection here? And then so that's when she should say it, right? But instead she lies and says no.
As in your job, do you have any connection with the city attorney's office?
Not really. Not really.
Yes or no?
Do you think she says yes and explains it?
Mr. Myers, you don't get to say that. I'm asking the questions. You get to say
Who guessed that they were going to admonish Mr. Myers and then let the liar just lie her ass off under oath?
I'm asking the questions. To my ear, that sounded kind of rude.
My bad.
Please stop.
No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
Here you go, Michael. Bailiff Karen.
Am I supposed to be rebutting her evidence or presenting new evidence?
It's your case. It's
Oh,
your
I thought you
time.
wanted me to come up there with the computer.
Karen, I got it. I got it. Thank you, Karen.
Bailiff Karen, dude. Also, too, this hearing is the injunction contesting hearing. He's contesting the injunction because, you know, or whatever. This is his right. And then so at the actual injunction, the recorded audio, Matt Walker is there with her again and participates in it because we can hear his voice asking a question on the recording. But I'll do that later. I just want to stick to the scope of this video. So just in conclusion, like what we call ourselves, the title that we give ourselves is super important. Like it's not anyway, calling somebody a victim when they're not a victim it is a conclusion, right? A victim is something, and a criminal is something that happens after a jury trial and after the due process is done. You can't call somebody a criminal before they're a criminal. If not, it's defamation. You can't call somebody a victim before they're a victim because you want them to be the victim at the end of the trial, especially if you're the prosecutor. It's ethically wrong. I'll make an example out of the rest of this. So there's also the victim is a legal conclusion, just like the term sex offender is a legal conclusion. So I'll just use, if that's okay to do, then I'll just use sex offender for the rest of this. Okay. The reason how I know judge sex offender is part of sex offender Matt Walker's cahoots or whatever is because on 122H it's not a request, it is a notice, right? And then and every other one of Lane Myers's hearings, you guys know this. He puts in the notice, and then the judge is so confused by it, they have to question him about it and find out what it is and blah, blah, blah. This one, the sex offender judge, Miller, knows exactly what it is and not only says it out loud like she doesn't need to if she knows about the rule, but she actually, sex offender Miller, uses the word request, right? Okay. Sex offender Matt Walker, it has a petition to change this rule, right? And because he doesn't like it, and again in the rule, there's nowhere in the rule does it say anything about victims. It calls each of their parties, each opposing party, right? Defense party, prosecution party, whatever. And anyways, the one thing that the sex offender Matt Walker is trying to change is that he wants it to be a request. As you see here, how it's underlined, right? And what it was is what it's crossed out. Notice. How does she magically know the rule, know it enough but then say out loud that she's answering a request? Does she think this is the actual rule? Is this what they showed her? Or was she a party to it and she's trying to push it before it becomes one? Because it hasn't even gone back to the Supreme Court yet. And who showed her this, right? Who represented this to her as it being the rule, or who showed her to make it thinking that it's the rule? It's literally got scratches out through it and shit. There's not a version of it that doesn't have those lines through it. So how would she call that a request and immediately know what the rule is instead of asking Myers about it and making a big stink about it like every other judge? It's because they're in on it together. Think about it, y'all. Still not enough for you? Okay, sex offender Rachel Stiles, right? She uses the word victim, abuses the word victim, right? Right? Okay, so in sex offender Matt Walker's version, what he wants to change, his petition, the way he wants it to read, I took all the underlined parts out, everything that sex offender added in there, and put it all together and then now look what that looks like. So in the original rule, the word sex offender isn't in there. I'm sorry, victim, right? But in Matt's, these are all the phrases and stuff that he's added. Victim, he says victim or witness at least 7 times, right? And here's another thing. There's a blatant constitutional violation in here. Look, except that a judge can deny your request without a hearing. He can deny a constitutional right to record without a hearing. That's what he's proposing. This guy's an absolute moron. 122 is pretty large, pretty big rule. There's a lot of words in there, but one word that's not in there is harassment. This is literally a statute about recording in the courtroom, and it has the word. He wants the words harassment and the ARSs to be included in a rule for recording. This guy is a fucking clown, dude. Hey, how about this? What are the news stations over there? KOB, KIC, whatever. The news stations. If you guys think that this isn't going to affect you, look at this other thing that he wants to stick in there, right? You're not going to be able to disseminate anything from the courts to the public without the court's permission, right? Constitutional violation amended proposition number 2 from Matt Walker. He just wants to fucking wipe out. He's just trying to wipe off the Constitution, bro. So after he takes your constitutional rights away from you legally, then he wants to be able to have you not use that as a defense whenever you get prosecuted for it afterwards. Here you go on M. Rule M, this is not a defense. This rule does not create or otherwise operate as a defense to criminal or civil liability for any persons who chooses to photograph or record or broadcast in a courtroom. So you can't do it, but if you do it, we're going to prosecute you for it, and you can't use that as an excuse. This dude's a fucking traitor, dude. Oh my gosh. Sex offender Matt Walker, the traitor. Principal. And don't think you're going to get me on the whole sex offender thing, because it's for education. It was to educate, to prove a point, and give an example of how calling somebody a sex offender or a victim should not be done, right? And
by
that is
a prosecutor in open court.
She's an example for the people. So she's leading by example. I'm following. I'm a follower of hers. She couldn't even tell the difference between the victim and the accused. You know what I mean? She called Mr. Myers the victim in her own case. What's wrong with these people?